Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies are in the spotlight again this week after killing another person on August 31st in LA County and after new details have emerged of a police gang, yes, a police gang inside the Sheriff's Department known as the Executioners. The Executioners, in which cops are initiated by violence and rewarded for brutalizing and killing community members. The victim of Monday's shooting, who has not yet been identified by name, was shot by deputies who were pursuing him for riding his bicycle in violation of vehicle codes. Riding a bicycle in violation of vehicle codes. And this took place right around the same time that the news broke around the case of Andres Guardado, who was gunned down by sheriffs earlier this year. And in that case, it was documented that the police destroyed video cameras in order to hide evidence of their crime. And now a whistleblower has stated that the officer who killed Guardado was a prospective member of the Executioners gang. These gangs have a long history in the LA Sheriff's Department and have been subject to investigations, court cases, and media exposure for decades. And yet these gangs are, in fact, still around. And the situation of the LA Sheriff should really be known by the whole country, because it speaks directly to how deep the problem of police abuse goes and what it will really take to uproot police abuse. Since the killing of George Floyd, we have heard over and over that to deal with this problem, we have to make a change at the top, that we have to vote out Trump. And that, for instance, has been the takeaway after NBA players made their very powerful statements against racism. They also came with a chorus of new appeals to citizens to take to the ballot box. But let's look at the state of California, which has a Democratic supermajority and a Democratic governor, all of whom, of course, say that they are for police reform and that they also believe that Black lives matter. But what has this amounted to in reality? Well, in the most recent California Assembly session, which closed this week, lawmakers failed to pass any of the high-profile police reform bills that had been introduced. Most notably was State Bill 731, which was designed to make a police officer more liable for their own misconduct. Right now in California, police officers who plant or fabricate evidence, for instance, are immune from liability under current California law. Jail guards who maliciously beat and injure people are also not personally liable. State Bill 731 would have changed this, as well as create a system to decertify police officers so that if they are fired or resigned because of misconduct, they will not be able to be police officers anywhere else in the state of California. Now, you would think that this would be unobjectionable, but for California Democrats, the thought of just minimal accountability for cops seemed to be too much to handle. So much so that they didn't even bring it to a vote. Wow. California legislators also failed to pass a bill limiting the use of rubber bullets, going 0 for 2 there. They failed to pass a bill that would have required officers to intervene when another officer is using excessive force, so that's 0 for 3 there. And another bill would have required the release of officers' prior history of police brutality and where they had lied in investigations. Now, believe it or not, that measure actually passed both houses, but they had to do some reconciliation. They didn't get to that, so they actually let time run out, so it did not become law. 0 for 4. So there you have it, California, Democratic supermajority, Democratic governor. And the cops are still killing people with impunity, running literal gangs inside the sheriff's department, and the politicians aren't doing anything about it. It's safe to say that for tens of millions of people who poured into the streets this year in mass protests, regardless of how they vote, there will be no deliverance of justice on Election Day. And that is why so many of those millions are now talking about deep change, structural change, revolutionary change in some cases, not just electoral change.